Have you ever had a moment where a small act of kindness changed the entire course of your life?
For most people, life can feel like a routine, moving in predictable patterns.
But sometimes, a single interaction can alter everything. Meet Emily, a humble waitress working at a small, quiet cafe on the edge of town. She wasn't the kind of person who expected anything extraordinary to happen in her life. Day in and day out, she served coffee, delivered food, and greeted regulars with a warm smile. But today, something different was in the air. It was a crisp afternoon when a well-dressed man walked into the cafe. He looked out of place amidst the usual crowd. The cafe wasn't the sort of place where celebrities or high-profile individuals came to dine. He sat down at a corner table, catching Emily's attention immediately. There was something intriguing about him. His eyes, calm yet intense, seemed to carry a story of their own. Emily didn't know it yet, but this man was going to change her life in ways she could never have imagined. As she walked over to take his order, Emily's heart raced a little faster. This man, who seemed so out of place, was about to become a significant part of her world. With a polite smile, she asked, "What can I get for you today, sir?" "Just a coffee," he replied, his voice gentle yet commanding. "Black, no sugar." Little did Emily know, this was no ordinary customer. The man she had just served was none other than Kim Soo-hyun, a famous actor whose presence was almost impossible to ignore. But Emily wasn't aware of his fame. She had no idea who he was, and that was about to be a blessing for both of them. As Emily went about preparing his coffee, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something extraordinary about him. There was a calm aura that surrounded him, unlike the usual customers she dealt with. While waiting for the coffee to brew, she overheard a conversation between two other waitresses who were gossiping about the new guy. "I heard he's some kind of big actor," one of them whispered, "but honestly, he doesn't look like the type who'd be here." Emily was taken aback. She wasn't usually interested in celebrity news, but now that she knew, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of curiosity. She brought the coffee to his table, placing it gently in front of him. "Here you go," she said, trying to keep her composure despite the excitement brewing inside her. As she turned to walk away, he called out to her. "Excuse me," his voice was calm but carried an underlying intensity. Emily froze and turned back. She could feel her heart skip a beat. "Would you mind sitting for a moment?" "Sure," she said, a little surprised but intrigued. She sat across from him, trying to hide the nerves that were starting to bubble up inside her. "I hope I'm not being too forward," he began, "but you seem different from everyone else here. Most people are distracted, busy with their own lives, but you seem present, aware." Emily was unsure of how to respond. No one had ever said anything like that to her. "I just do my job," she replied modestly, feeling a little embarrassed. Kim Soo-hyun smiled, the corners of his lips curling up just enough to make his eyes sparkle. "Well, you're doing it very well." Emily was momentarily taken aback by his compliment. He took a sip of his coffee and then looked at her with a more serious expression. "I'm actually here for a reason. Not just for coffee." Emily tilted her head slightly, her curiosity piqued. She had no idea what kind of reason someone like him would have for coming to this little cafe, but she could tell this was more than just a casual conversation. "I'm listening," she said, her voice steady despite the flutter of nervousness she felt inside. Kim Soo-hyun placed his cup gently on the table and leaned forward, his gaze focused on her. "You see," he began, "I've been thinking a lot about life and how it tends to pass us by. We often get caught up in the hustle, chasing after things we think will make us happy. But sometimes, happiness comes from something simpler, something unexpected." Emily couldn't help but feel like there was more to his words than just a random philosophical musing. She had heard people talk about the meaning of life before, but there was something about his tone that made her believe he had experienced something significant himself. "I've been given a gift recently," he continued. "A gift that I believe will change someone's life. I've spent the past few months thinking about who I could help, who would appreciate it the most. And then, I came here today. I've never been to this cafe before, and I don't know why I chose it. But something told me that you might be the person I've been looking for." Emily blinked in disbelief. She wasn't sure if he was joking or if he was serious.
Me, she asked, almost laughing nervously.
Why me? I'm just a waitress. I don't have anything special to offer.
Kim Soo-hyun smiled warmly at her.
That's exactly why. You are humble, genuine, and kind.
You're exactly the kind of person who deserves this gift.
A gift? Emily couldn't even begin to imagine what he was talking about.
She felt her heart race as her thoughts swirled.
Could this really be happening? Was she dreaming?
He leaned back in his chair, his eyes softening.
I've decided to offer you something that will change your life. But first, tell me, what's the one thing you've always wanted, the thing you've never been able to have, no matter how hard you tried?
Emily sat there in stunned silence, her mind racing.
What could she possibly want that would be life-changing?
She had always kept her dreams simple. A stable job, a peaceful life, and perhaps a little more time for herself, nothing extravagant. But now, faced with such a profound question from a man she barely knew, she was at a loss for words.
Honestly, I've never really thought about it that way, she said after a few moments. I've always been focused on taking care of the people around me, making sure I can pay my bills and live a modest life. I guess I've never really let myself dream big.
Kim Soo-hyun nodded as though he understood exactly what she meant.
That's exactly why you're the person I want to help.
People who are always giving, always sacrificing, deserve something for themselves.
We get so caught up in the day-to-day that we forget to look ahead, to plan for what we truly want. I believe you deserve the opportunity to make a choice that is just for you.
Emily felt her heart swell as his words sunk in. She had spent so much of her life putting others first that the idea of doing something just for herself felt almost selfish. But maybe, just maybe, this was her chance to do something for her own happiness.
What if this was the moment she could finally break free from the monotony and step into a new world?
I don't even know where to start, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper.
That's okay, he said, his tone reassuring. You don't have to have all the answers right now. But I want to offer you the opportunity to change your life, to take a leap that will take you beyond what you ever thought possible. And I want to help make that happen.
Emily felt a lump form in her throat.
Could she really accept something so extraordinary from a complete stranger?
But the sincerity in his eyes and the calm certainty in his voice made it hard to refuse. I thank you, she said quietly, unsure of how else to respond.
But I don't even know what to ask for. I've never had anyone offer me anything like this.
Kim Soo-hyun leaned forward again, his voice dropping slightly as though he were sharing a secret. I'm offering you something that could change the course of your life, something more than money or fame. I want to offer you the chance to pursue your true passion, whatever that may be. Whether it's going back to school, traveling the world, starting a business, or something else entirely. I want to give you the resources to make it happen, but you have to make the choice. Emily blinked, her mind reeling. This wasn't just a gift, it was an opportunity. An opportunity to leave behind the life she had known and create a future that was hers to shape. She had never even dared to imagine such possibilities. But now, with Kim Soo-hyun sitting across from her, the chance felt real, tangible. You mean, you would help me with anything? She asked, still trying to process his offer. Anything I want? Kim Soo-hyun smiled softly, his gaze steady.
Anything. I know it sounds too good to be true, but sometimes, the universe works in mysterious ways. You've been the kind of person who's always putting others first, and now it's your turn. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes.
She had always been a giver, but now, for the first time in her life, she was being offered something just for her.
The thought was overwhelming. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now, he said gently. Just think about it. But know this, you don't have to settle for the life you have now if it's not the one you want. There's so much more out there for you.
Emily felt a flood of emotions, gratitude, disbelief, and hope all at once. She had never imagined that a simple coffee order could lead to such a life-changing moment. As she sat there, she realized that her life was about to change in a way she had never expected. The weight of his words hung in the air, and Emily found herself lost in thought. She had always been so focused on surviving, on getting through the day, that she had never stopped to wonder about what she truly wanted. Now, she was faced with the most incredible opportunity of her life, an opportunity to chase a dream, to break free from the limitations she had unknowingly placed on herself. But even as she sat there, overwhelmed by the possibilities, doubt began to creep in. Was this all too good to be true? She had heard stories about people who had their lives changed in an instant, but they always seemed like distant, almost fairy tale-like tales. This wasn't supposed to happen to someone like her, right? Kim Soo-hyun seemed to sense her hesitation. I understand that it's a lot to take in, he said, his voice calm and reassuring. But sometimes, the most significant changes come when we least expect them. I'm not asking you to decide right away. I just want you to know that the chance is here, and it's real. Emily took a deep breath and looked at him, still unsure. But why me? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why would you want to help someone like me? He smiled gently, as though he had anticipated her question. Because you have something special about you, Emily. It's not about fame or fortune. It's about the kindness in your heart, the humility in your spirit. You give so much to others, yet you never ask for anything in return. People like you deserve to have their own dreams fulfilled. I believe that. Tears started to well up in her eyes again, but this time, they weren't tears of doubt. They were tears of recognition, tears that told her that perhaps she was worthy of something more, something beyond what she had ever imagined. I don't know how to thank you, she said softly. This is beyond anything I could have hoped for. You don't need to thank me, he replied with a warm smile. You've already done so much by simply being who you are. Now it's your turn to receive something in return. The enormity of his offer began to sink in, and Emily realized that she was standing at a crossroads. She could choose to remain in the comfortable, predictable life she had always known, or she could take a leap into the unknown, into a future that held endless possibilities. The choice was hers to make, and for the first time in her life, she felt the courage to embrace it. As she sat there, contemplating the path ahead, Kim Soo-hyun stood up, ready to leave. Take your time to think about it, he said, offering her a final, encouraging smile. But remember, the world is full of possibilities, and you don't have to settle for anything less than what you deserve. With that, he left the cafe, leaving Emily alone with her thoughts. As the door swung shut behind him, she realized that she had just been given the most incredible gift, a chance to reshape her life. Days passed, and Emily couldn't stop thinking about the conversation she had had with Kim Soo-hyun. Every moment she spent reflecting on his words only made her more certain that something extraordinary had happened to her. She had always been content with the life she had, but now, with the idea of pursuing something bigger and more meaningful, her heart longed for a change. The possibilities were endless, yet overwhelming. She spent hours thinking about what her true passion could be. Was it opening her own cafe? Traveling the world? Or perhaps it was something entirely different, something she hadn't even considered yet. It was as if her whole world had opened up, and she was struggling to figure out where to begin. She hadn't felt this much hope and excitement in years. But doubt, as it often does, crept back in. Was she really capable of stepping into a new life, leaving behind the safety and familiarity of her current routine? Could she trust herself to make the right choice? One evening, as she was walking home from work, Emily stopped in front of the cafe, gazing at the lights in the window. She felt a strange pull, a deep connection to the place where everything had changed. As she stood there, lost in thought, she noticed a small envelope lying on the doorstep. Curiosity got the better of her, and she bent down to pick it up. Inside the envelope, there was a note with just a few words written on it: "The opportunity is still waiting. Don't let fear hold you back." There was no signature, but Emily immediately recognized the handwriting. It was from Kim Soo-hyun. Her heart skipped a beat as she clutched the note tightly in her hands. This was his way of reminding her that the choice was still hers to make. The opportunity he had given her was still real, still waiting for her to take that first step. The fear and uncertainty that had been clouding her mind began to lift, replaced by a surge of determination. She couldn't let this chance slip away. It was time to stop holding back. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she knew one thing for sure: it was time for her to chase her dreams, to take a leap into the unknown.
With newfound resolve, Emily made a decision.
The next day, she would go to the local community college and inquire about programs that could help her achieve her goals. Whether it was business, art, or travel, she was going to start somewhere, and this time, she wasn't going to let fear stand in her way. The next morning, Emily woke up earlier than usual, a sense of purpose filling her chest. She had made her decision the night before, and today, she was going to take the first step. As she prepared for her day, she couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and nervousness. It was as if the entire world had shifted, and for the first time, she felt like she was in control of her own destiny. She arrived at the community college, her heart racing. The campus was bustling with students, some rushing to their classes, others lounging on benches, chatting with friends. Emily walked through the doors, her eyes scanning the building for the right office. The administrative staff was friendly, and before long, she was sitting down with a counselor who listened patiently as she explained her dreams and aspirations. The counselor smiled warmly as she explained the various programs that were available, from business courses to creative writing classes, even travel and tourism programs. Emily found herself overwhelmed by the options, but in a good way. She could finally see the path ahead of her, and for the first time, it didn't feel impossible. After a long conversation, Emily left the office with a brochure in hand and a renewed sense of hope. She had made the first step.
She was no longer just a waitress.
She was someone with a future, someone who could shape her own life. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying, but she knew one thing: she was ready. As she walked back to her apartment, she couldn't help but replay the conversation with Kim Soo-hyun in her mind. His belief in her had given her the courage to move forward, to step into a world she had once thought was beyond her reach. The reality of what he had offered was becoming clearer, and Emily realized just how much it had changed her life. She no longer felt stuck in the same old routine. Now, she felt like she was finally living with purpose. That evening, after a long day of reflection, Emily sat down at her desk and began to sketch out her goals. She didn't know where this new journey would take her, but she knew that it was the beginning of something incredible. She had taken the leap, and now it was up to her to keep moving forward. Weeks passed, and Emily's life slowly but steadily began to transform. She enrolled in a program that resonated with her passion for helping people, a course that combined aspects of hospitality and business management. It was exactly the direction she had been looking for: an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to eventually open her own cafe. Each class she attended fueled her excitement, and every step she took felt like progress toward a life she had always dreamed of but never thought possible. As she worked through the challenges of her studies, Emily continued to reflect on the day that everything had changed. The encounter with Kim Soo-hyun seemed like a dream, something too extraordinary to be real. But every decision she made since that day felt like it was a direct result of his belief in her, a belief that had awakened something inside her that she had kept dormant for years. The community around her noticed the change too. Her friends and co-workers commented on how much more confident she had become, how her eyes sparkled with ambition. They could see the fire inside her that she hadn't even recognized before. Emily was no longer just surviving, she was living with purpose, and that made all the difference. One day, as she sat in a cafe studying for her next exam, her phone buzzed with a new message.
It was from Kim Soo-hyun. "I hope you're doing well, Emily," the message read. "I wanted to check in and see how everything is going. Remember, you can always reach out if you need any advice or guidance. I'm proud of the progress you've made." Tears welled up in her eyes as she read his words. It wasn't just the opportunity he had offered her that had changed her life, it was the genuine kindness and encouragement that had sparked the change within her. Emily realized that this man, whom she had once only known as a customer, had been the catalyst for her transformation. His belief in her had given her the confidence to believe in herself. As she typed a response, her fingers trembling with gratitude, Emily finally understood the power of kindness, the impact of believing in someone when they couldn't believe in themselves. She had been given a second chance at life, a chance to not only dream but to make those dreams a reality. If you've made it this far, type "second chance" in the comments.